Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Moving into the Future. Today, I am joined by Kelly Lekic of PAX Consulting, where she is the owner and founder. Kelly, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, opening this up after a while. I'm very excited to be a guest on your podcast. I've watched so many people, so I feel very privileged today that I am your guest. So thank you very much for having me.
I tell you what, I feel privileged to be joined by you. I really do. You know, since I've met you, you're such a wonderful person. We have so much in common, you know, with our businesses. And today we are in the Black Rock, New York office in Hudson Yards, which you helped open.
Yes, with many other helpers and wonderful people that I had the privilege to work with on this project, the BlackRock team themselves and all the other vendors and contractors that I was lucky enough to work with and still continue to have relationships with as I'm still here at BlackRock and still going and still doing projects for them. So yes, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and I mean, it was quite the project too. It was the largest project in New York City last year. So, you know, What was that like for you?
It was amazing. 1 million square feet, which is enormous. And I was lucky enough to have been recommended by someone to do this project. And I can't lie, as a new business owner coming into this behemoth was terrifying. Honestly, it was terrifying, but I had wonderful support teams and wonderful people, so it turned out beautiful.
Yeah,
I can't be happier. So.
And you know, it's interesting because those big projects, they can be terrifying. You know, I've certainly had them too. I remember, you know, I did my biggest project at the Advanced Group last year at the end of the year, and you know, as soon as that project starts, you're on pins and needles
the whole time.
But what it is, and what's a testament to you and your ability to lead and you know, pragmatically solve a lot of the components that come along with a move, is it turned out great.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things, especially like you said, you know, as a business owner and somebody who's growing their business, and we'll talk more about that. Mm-hmm. To get through it and, you know, prove to yourself that you can do it is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a real opportunity for me, being a new business and a small business. It was sort of a launching pad for me to so many other relationships and avenues and potential projects and current projects. So it was really such a springboard for PAX, which is something I cannot be more grateful for. I'm not sure PAX or myself would have moved forward as quickly had it not been for this project. So it was a very meaningful project for myself and my team.
And what was the full duration of it?
I was here for, which is now 1.5 years.
Yeah.
But I know the teams that were here prior to me, they were here, started 5 years ago.
Right.
So I came in at the tail end, as furniture always does.
Right.
You know, we come in after all the fit outs are kind of in swing. But the other teammates that I had were here from day one, 5 years ago. One of the girls, another woman that I, you know, have worked very closely with, Elizabeth Senna, she was here from day one when they were still in their old offices and they were just talking about it and it was just on paper. So people were here for quite a long time. Their entire career was sort of here.
Yeah.
Younger people, you know, they started here and that's where they remained for 5 years.
I'll tell you what, and what a project. And see, the best part is when you get to see it all come together and you get to see, you know, employees actively using the space and seeing the space for the first time. I mean, you gave me a tour of the space before we started the podcast, and it is like breathtaking.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's for, you know, for you to be a part of it and see it, and then also, you know, get to experience all the employees. It's the best. You know,
and
that's what I
you
love
have
about
the
my
same,
job.
yes.
Yeah.
It's very rewarding to see the end result and know that you had a hand in it, you know, and none of us do it single-handedly, you know, so it's very, very nice to sort of stand there with your peers and look at it from a distance and say, wow, we did that.
Exactly.
So it feels good.
Yeah.
Can't lie. Feels good.
Exactly. And you know, you had mentioned as far as PAX Consulting and it legitimizing, you know, yourself and your business. I found this out about you last time we spoke. So you started at Macro Project Management. We had Fred Buscaglia.
Yes.
From Macro. And So that's where you got your start,
Yes.
correct?
Yep. I started at Macro. A very good friend of mine recommended me for a part-time position at the time. I had babies, so I was trying to navigate going back to work, but still being home for my children. And I started at Macro and worked for Michael Glatt for 9 years. And that's where I learned everything.
Yeah. And at what point did you start to think about, your own business and thinking, I can do this for people? And because you are entrepreneurial by nature.
I am, and I try to push through my fear/terror barriers as best I can. But I think honestly, the Macro team and the people that I worked with during that time really helped me do that. I didn't really consider my own company until I left there. And probably about 2 or 3 years later, I started to really think about, I've been doing this for so many other people and I'm devoting so much time and so much energy into it. What's the best way for me to take ownership of it and have more control over how I work and the hours I work? Because for anyone who knows, you're still a parent, you're still a wife or a husband, and it just seemed the best path for me to be able to have more control over my personal life and professional life. So I learned everything I could possibly learn at Macro, but it wasn't until long after I left there that I really considered going into my own business. So.
Right. And now you've had PAX for 4 years, right?
4 years.
Yeah. And what's that evolution been like? I mean, again, this was kind of your big break with BlackRock.
Yeah. So I started the legal and paperwork process of PAX. And when I really finally launched my my web page and got myself out there on LinkedIn, we had a pandemic, which was probably not the best time to launch a company, but it turned out really well for me, being small, because everything sort of slowed down.
Right.
And nobody wanted to come into the city to do any work.
Right.
So I was like, I'll take the health risk and go into New York City. So that was one thing that was beneficial. I was willing to go in with all the construction teams and all of that during the actual pandemic. And also, it was at a little bit of a slower pace, which allowed me to have that learning curve where, when you're in full-blown New York City mode, there is no learning curve.
Right.
There is just stress. And I think if I had really launched PAX during full New York City, when it was all that it is, I think I would have struggled a little bit more. But I think oddly, the pandemic gave me an opportunity to meet people I probably would not have ordinarily met as quickly. It gave me the opportunity to connect with people who were business owners who became mentors to me.
Nice.
And they took time because they had time.
Right.
So it actually turned out to be the best thing that could have happened for PAX.
A little blessing in disguise.
Blessing in disguise. Silver linings.
Exactly.
So,
that's what it's all about, too.
Yeah. And I had such wonderful mentors, Gary Anzalone, Guy, they really walked me through so many things and taught me so many things that I didn't know. Just all the people at IBD, yourself, Mike Duckfield, they all gave me so much information and helped me to learn so openly, and I'm very grateful for that. That's priceless.
Yeah, it is. And that's, something too, I've always had mentors who have held me along the way, and it's so invaluable.
Yeah.
What they can do for you. And again, not just when you're starting out, but as you're progressing through your business, because your business is always evolving. And again, like we had just spoken about, you've hit this new milestone, but now there's more, and there's more challenges, and it's very rewarding. I mean, owning a business does have a lot of benefits, like you said, controlling your time, controlling your schedule, controlling your income, really.
I don't think I've ever worked harder.
Yeah, right.
But the risk and reward is different.
Exactly.
So I think that's where you don't feel the pain of working so many hours as much when you're working towards something for yourself, for your family. Potentially, I have 3 daughters. Maybe they'll take it over someday or want to get involved in it someday. But it has a different meaning when it's your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so as far as what you do, with PAX Consulting, it's largely furniture, installation, moving, logistics, coordination.
Yes.
anything else beyond that, or largely that?
We're trying to expand into the construction
You
world
are?
a little bit.
Yeah.
We're in the very early stages, so I'm not sure what that looks like. But I mean, ultimately, it would be wonderful to step into that owner's rep sort of, you know, feel
Right.
and start to put that into place for PAX. So it's something that we're working on and thinking about, and just, you know, I feel like it'll happen when it's supposed to happen now.
Exactly.
But
And
right
that's the
now-
way it goes
Yeah,
too, you know,
yeah.
and again, it's like that natural evolution.
Yep.
Because that's something I've always considered too. Your husband's in construction, right? Yeah. So, you know, with me, you understand it from, you know, speaking with him and,
Yes.
and being, you know, involved in some of his projects, you know, from afar. With me coming up, I'd always been involved in construction when I was at Indeed and WeWork, and understood it, you know,
Yes.
to a point. Like, I understand MEP, and I
Exactly.
understand, you know, managing, you know, different vendors and, you know, that aspect of things. But it's like, it's still a different world.
Different world, and we're not as much in the weeds of it.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely a connection between what we do and the construction teams.
Right.
But ultimately, my knowledge lies more in the furniture and logistics, move, relocation. But, you know, as you connect with people in your own business and with other companies, they start to say, you know, they
Can
put
you
little,
do
yes,
this?
and you
And
do
you're
this.
not gonna say no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's the other thing you learn when you have your own business. You just never say no. You're like, yes, we can do that. And then you go home and you don't sleep.
Right.
And you try to figure out how we're going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the power of the network too.
Yes.
And, you know, having the people around, like you mentioned, Mike Duckfield.
Yep.
Or, you know, other people.
Yep.
They can get you through it.
They
you
can.
know,
And
they
you
coach
know what's
through us.
funny? I've learned to reach out to those resources, I think, which is something, you know, you sort of feel like a lone wolf.
Right.
And you really can't survive that way. You have to be vulnerable.
Of course.
And you have to ask people those questions that they're going to know that you don't know it at that point, but you're better off asking the question
Of
and
course.
learning it than learning it the hard way.
It's better to look stupid asking a question
Yes.
than it is to look stupid messing it up.
100%.
You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, too, having your own business, it's one of those things after a while, you start to get really comfortable with
Right.
asking the questions.
Right, of course.
And then you're texting people, oh my God, what is this? Oh my God, you know, so you sort of, it flows. It happens naturally.
Yeah. Well, and you become an eager learner is the way
Yes.
that I see it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I may be naive in some sense, but, you know, that's how you learn, is by asking questions, and you should really never
I
be
agree.
afraid to ask.
And I think people are grateful.
Oh, yeah. They want to be your teacher
They do.
too, you know, they
really,
want to
really
help.
do.
Yeah.
I've noticed that people are so eager to give you information and
Mm-hmm.
insight into things. I've never had a bad experience asking someone questions or for advice or business advice or anything. It's always been a positive.
Yeah.
People have, my experience has been that people are always very, very eager to give information and help you.
Right. And that prompts my next question too. As a woman-owned business, in going through that process of starting your own business and developing and growing and all of those things, have other women, you know, approached you about starting their business? And if they have, or if they haven't, what advice would you give them?
I have had many women, a lot of them younger, and I'm, if anyone who knows me, you know me, I'm a huge advocate for women-owned businesses and bringing women into this industry, particularly, you know, whether it's furniture, just because that helps me out if they're in the industry, but, you know, construction and just the trades. So I'm a huge, huge advocate of pulling women, whether it be their own companies or, you know, if I can mentor and help them and bring them into the fold. One of my big pushes for PAX has always been that I won't hire men.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, I'm not a man hater. I just, I feel that the opportunities are much more abundant for men out there in this
Right.
industry. And I think the younger generation, young girls coming out of college or even their mid to late 20s, just sort of giving them the confidence to come onto a construction site and go in a hoist with 30 men. And, you know, and just that feeling, there's an unnerving feeling
Of course.
for young women to do that. I remember the first time I did it, I was like, God, please just beam me up and take me out of this situation.
Right.
Because it's so, you're just nervous. You feel like you don't know anything and you don't belong there.
Of course, and it's human nature when you're in a situation, any situation
Yes.
where you are the outlier.
Right.
It becomes unnerving and
Right.
uncomfortable, and it takes either some amount of time in order to get comfortable with it,
Correct.
and that's why I understand where you're coming from as far as hiring women only, because you're also able to be that support system for them.
Correct.
As they're developing and getting comfortable and learning and understanding. So that certainly makes sense. And from what I understand, it's just you and you have one other employee, right?
Yes. Right now, myself and one other employee. I'm actually looking to hire and, starting that process of looking for PMs, which is great. I mean, what a great position to be in.
It really is.
But it's also now here's another new step for PAX, right? So this is also something I'm learning. How does that work? What does that look like financially? What does it look like? There's a very different spin on things. And I give credit to all of the people I have worked for in the past who have grown, mega companies. Michael Glatt from Macro specifically. I remember when I started there was like 10 of us on a floor, a section of a floor, and it was just a small group, and then it became something enormous, and now it's Macro Savills. And so, I mean, I've been very lucky to see people do those things, and it's amazing, and I now understand how difficult that is, and you're responsible for those people.
Right.
They become like children to you. You are their livelihood at that point, and that puts a very, very different spin on the company.
It does.
It's not about you anymore.
Right.
Now it's about all of your employees.
Exactly, and you're making decisions for all of them.
100%. It's not just them that you're making those decisions for. It's their spouses, it's their partners, it's their children, so it changes the look and feel of what you're about to do. Just another milestone
Right.
that you have to work through. And I think that's just the next milestone that I'm hitting right now. But it really changes you when you experience it for yourself. When you're the outlier and you're looking at it and you're looking at other people do it, you really don't understand the magnitude and what you have in your hands that you have to take care of.
Yeah,
So.
that's something else too. And I mean, I've never had to deal with it, so I can only imagine it. But I certainly understand what you're saying, and what you're doing also is building a company culture. So the people that you bring on to build that culture with you are important. It's like any other endeavor in life where it's like picking your friends, or your spouse or whatever it may be when you're on a team. And understanding the different dynamics, because everybody's different in some way or sense. And again, you want to have some level of common denominator. You mentioned women, like that helps.
Yeah.
But it has to be the right women, and they have to understand. What is the mission here, and how are we all getting there, and what are some of the similar traits that I have or I want to have with these people? But what are some of the different traits? What don't I do well that this person might be able to help me with? So how have you been noticing that and studying that and finding, different prospects?
So the interesting thing about BlackRock, which is a first, was there were more women in the senior PM roles on the BlackRock project than on any other project that I have been on. So when we would do our walkthroughs, there would be like 8 women and like 3 men, and it became like a joke because it was very unusual.
Right.
I can honestly say that every woman that I encountered and worked with for a very long period of time on this project were incredible. And those, as I started to engage with them more and more, I realized these are the women that I want to work for PAX.
Right.
These are the women, and they embody the traits that I think fit the best. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
There's a very specific...
It's high stress.
High stress,
Yeah.
and it's not for everyone.
Right.
People think you need to be overly forceful or have this huge person. I have a very big personality, not a shock. But I mean, not everybody is me. So there are tons of young women that I have met and have been in the company of who are, get their point across very quietly and very calmly. And I learned from them. I watched them and I watched their demeanor. I'm never finished learning. I love working with young women. I love working with women that are, just coming out of college or, in their early to mid 20s or just early 30s. I learned so much from them, and it's what makes me want to bring more of that into PAX. They inspire me.
Of course.
They really do. They inspire me.
Yeah, especially when you can get the right ones. And I'm experiencing that for the first time in my career. Usually I've always been the mentee,
Right.
if you will.
Right.
And we just brought on a new employee who's 23. And it's interesting to see because that was the age I was when I started in the moving industry. And I knew nothing
Same.
about moving,
Right.
nothing.
Right.
I didn't know anything about New York City.
Neither.
That's
why we get along.
Right,
so
exactly.
well. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. And I was, completely raw. But I did have people who, helped me and lifted me up like we were talking about before. And when I'm speaking to him, I see myself repeating the same things that I was taught. And, that's why that cycle works very well and where you're coming from. I completely understand why that would motivate you and inspire you and, be so rewarding. How has it been, in terms of finding those young women, so far? Like, being an entrepreneur is a very unique trait that not everybody has, and everybody has ideas and everybody has, thoughts, but to actually activate those thoughts and do them is a whole different story.
Correct.
So, when you're speaking with them, how are you getting the message across that, I'm going to help you succeed in a sense? And
I say it.
yeah.
I just say it. So it's very interesting because I meet these young women and usually they work for other companies and, they work for, but the dynamic between women working together and men working together is very different.
Right.
There's a bond that women by nature grow to have with each other. And it's a little bit different and it's sort of, I feel like a little bit longer lasting. So one of the things, like I've had so many of the young girls, say to me, can you hire me? Can I come work for you? Just because the environment is different.
Right.
When you understand them and you understand the young women, their, I guess the things that they are coping with,
Right.
it just automatically, they're like, oh, thank God. We are in a very male-dominated industry, and oftentimes, from a generational perspective, you have people in higher executive positions that are a bit older,
Right.
and don't understand the needs of the female employees that are coming in.
Right.
They're like, hey, listen, our guys can do this, so the women have to do it too. My opinion, I don't think that always works.
Right.
I think there has to be a certain level of flexibility for some of the women that are in the company, because they do have children. And, quite honestly, when men can start having the babies, it's a 50-50 shot, we'll talk about it.
Right,
But
yeah.
right now, predominantly, a lot of that pressure falls on women.
It is. And because, mothers specifically, are the nurturers and are often the ones, when the kids are sick at school,
Yep.
they're the ones who go get them.
Absolutely.
And that sort of thing. And
There's not a lot of understanding in our industry. That was one thing when I worked at Macro, I have to say, as a company, they were unbelievable with that.
Yeah.
I also think that was part of the success for me being there, like just sort of seeing that you can still create an incredible company, but still be compassionate towards the people that are in that company.
Right.
And you can flex and create something amazing, and it's still going. So I don't think that being flexible makes for a lesser company. I actually think it's the opposite. I think when you give a little more, people give back tenfold.
absolutely. Because again, your company and the company that you work for, especially small business wise,
Yes.
becomes somewhat of a second family.
Absolutely.
So you want to develop that trust and that understanding, compassion, and empathy, for your needs outside of work. And I think and this is why I wanted to say a woman-owned business is really beneficial, especially, in the construction and moving industry,
Yeah.
because of those opportunities and that understanding. I think in the world today, with the nature of work, it has changed a lot.
Agreed.
But nonetheless, you know, having that understanding and knowing that, and also too, as a young woman, you want to learn from somebody who's doing it, you know, and not to say that, you know, a male, exactly, but not to say, you know, a man couldn't do it, but it's just like you said, a different relationship. Yeah, so I totally understand that. And in terms of the type of work that you'd have them be doing, would they be working right alongside you? And I mean, yeah.
Allison, who works for me now, she was on this job site with me. Had never been on a construction.
This one in Buff Rock?
Yeah. She would, you know, I would run her around and tell her she learned who the men were. She knew what companies they worked for. Everybody got to know her, and they were wonderful to her. Everyone treated her unbelievably, you know, and they were ready to teach her, to talk to her, to help her, as was I. And very quickly, she became very comfortable. So, and she's a very different personality than I am. So it was nice to see that there is room for women in the industry. There really is. And I mean, I see tons more than I ever did before. So it's come a long way. And the men are always wonderful on the job sites. I've never been on a job site where there was ever an issue. And I don't know what people think goes on job sites, because I've had people ask me things. I'm like, no, it does not happen. You know, people aren't like, yes, things get tense, but I think it's a very, very respectful environment to be in. It's different.
Certainly.
You know, it's certainly different, but it's once you get into it and you get to know everyone, it's a very friendly place to be, and it's a very helpful group of people.
Yeah, and I think with both men and women, and it's also an age thing as well. Once you qualify yourself,
yes,
and you prove to whoever it may be that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, it's there's a level of respect that you know, it starts to enhance the relationship and understanding of what we're doing here. You know, if you do your job well and I do my job well, this project is going to be a success.
Exactly.
And that's what it comes down to. With you owning PAX and having 4 years under your belt, completing, you know, an incredibly large, very public and well-known project in New York City. You know, in 5 years' time, you know, what do you envision for the company?
What I envision and what will actually happen, I don't know. But I think envision is definitely just expanding our employee base. You know, we need to definitely, we're already growing enough that we need to start bringing PMs on and just working on getting new business. You know, now we're sort of on a roll here.
Exactly.
And now it's like, oh God, I can't do all of this by myself. So there's that realization that, oh my God, you will fail if you don't start to bring on people who are going to help you. So I think it's definitely growing in the furniture management and relocation management perspective. I think that part is going to grow. But I would love to see it grow into construction, having a construction management arm as well. That is where I would like for it to go. Ultimately, as of today, anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
Months you might call me, and we might have this conversation again, and I'll be like, no, that didn't work out so well. But you know, that's just sort of what I have in my head.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of where.
And that would be truly full service too, if you have those, you know, different divisions. And also, you know, very similar to Macro where you started.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, where they do full construction management and then, you know, furniture and project management.
And very successful.
Very successful, doing well.
Yep.
So that's very interesting, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. So yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to, you know, feature you. I think you're so wonderful in what you do. You know, with your business and just personally, I think you're great. So it's been a real pleasure.
Yes,
thank you.
Same. Thanks, Jack.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.